Hello, hello. If you're new, welcome to the channel and welcome to the 2024 playlist. So this is the deck tech for our modern 8 rack, which is really in a way kind of a 6 rack. So we're going to talk about what this deck seeks to do mostly. Okay, so these are our racks, right? So the rack is an interesting card. At the end, I'll show you this. Let's see here. There it is. Okay, well, for all intents and purposes, I like this one better. So as the rack enters the battlefield, choose an opponent. We only have one. At the beginning of the chosen player's upkeep, the rack deals X damage to that player, where X is going to be 3 minus the number of cards in his or her hand. So if they have no cards in hand, 3 damage. If they have 1 card in hand, 2 damage. And so on and so forth until if they have 3 minus the number of cards in their hand, it'll deal no damage. So we have 4 racks. And to get those racks, we have Urza's Sagas, which doubles as a land. And some people utilize some artifacts in a deck like this. Some artifact creating lands, like a Mutavault, which I've thought about putting a Mutavault in here. Maybe 2 Mutavaults, actually, but that's kind of outside of what we're trying to do. This deck works a little, it's simplified. It's a simplified beating stick. It is kind of a baseball bat with nails, if you will. That being said, make sure I'm in for... Oh, yeah, that looks real good. Okay. Anyways, so this is just a way so you don't have to have a couple more Shrieking Afflictions. I feel like this is more versatile. You have the Shrieking Afflictions, you can get the rack. So in any case, getting a few racks out and then just devastating our opponent's hand. So we seek to do that through things like, I'll show you how these work here. Get these in order. Okay, we'll get those down. There's a little special thing. I don't see other people utilizing these cards. And you guys are probably like, well, Richard, there's a good reason for that, Mr. Jank. Yeah, I know. In any case, I like them, and they've been really winning me a lot of games. I've devastated Murktide, and this deck came about. The reason I started working on this is because I wanted to scam Rakdos Scam. And I liked the deck, and playing it against Rakdos Scam, I found it could scam the scammer. I liked it, but now with Fury being banned, I really like, I feel like in the 2024, this deck is going to be really good because it's been really good thus far. And Fury being banned, this is the one deck that Fury being banned didn't really affect it too much, in my opinion. Like, Murktide loses to this. I've even gone up against a couple Amulet Titans. And, granted, I played quite a few matches, and, I will say, like, Amulet Titan is an awesome deck. It seems like it'd be really fun to play. It's very intuitive. It's not necessarily my cup of meat, as it were. However, I found if you can get a real good start on it, you could definitely devastate decks like that. Tron, oh my goodness, like, forget about it with this deck. This deck just poosh, punch, kill. So that being said, like, Burn could do things to it, but thus too, this could do things to Burn decks. And Burn is the one deck I do play, which is very, like, almost like out of the box, off the shelf metagame, because I love Burn. It's one of my favorite things. But that being said, we're running these Thoughtseize. So target player reveals his or her hand, choose a non-land card, that player discards that card. And if you haven't watched the first video, you should, because I'm not going to explain these cards too much. Basically, what this bunch of cards does here is this is going to take cards from our opponent. So while we're talking about that, we have another way. I bet you guys can guess what this one is. Surviving the ban list, we have Grief, okay? So we can evoke Grief. And evoke, I didn't utilize too much ever in my Magic gameplay up until, honestly, like, just recently. When I started using this one, I didn't ever care for, the Shriek Maw. I used it for a while in Kelia the Vast, but using this, being able to scam it back, as it were, is just amazing. So where are our scam spells? So anyways, this is another way. So before we explain scam, we'll just talk about grief. So it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand, you choose a non-land card from it. So on turn one, depending on what we have in our hand, if we can play this for free, in essence, by, say you have 2 griefs in hand, that's what I really like. Turn one, say you have 2 griefs and some way to bring back a grief. So exile a grief, play the grief, undying spell the grief. So it enters tapped with a 1/1 counter and a wicked token. Enters the battlefield again. That triggers, so you actually get to take 2 cards from them to discard. And then you've seen the hand as well. So having seen their hand, you could play something like Surgical Extraction. Choose target card in a graveyard other than a basic land card. Search its owner's graveyard, hand, or library for any number of cards with the same name as that card. So you've discarded 2, you've seen their hand. So, in the graveyard, depending on what's in there, they may have, lightning bolts, some key piece. There may be 2 of those in there. So then we hit that with Surgical Extraction. And it's crazy, not going to happen, but say we have 2 Surgical Extractions, we can really devastate them by just paying life. Not going to happen, though. But because we've evoked this, right? We've Undying Eviled it. It's back in the battlefield. So we've taken something from them there. We know what they have in hand. So turn 2, we can play a Blackmail. All right. We can play a Thoughtseize. We can play one of these removals. So on turn 2 with 2 black mana, we remove something else. So we see what they drew, remove it from their hand. Then we play Bang. Blackmail, right? So plays Thoughtseize followed by a Blackmail. Then target player reveals 3 cards from his or her hand. And they should have 3 or less in their hand. So when they reveal that, you choose one of them, that player discards that card. So it says they reveal cards from their hand. It doesn't say non-land cards. So you can swipe their lands and say, put those in the graveyard. Out of here. And guess what? We have Dautai Voidwalker. Where are you, buddy? All right. So here is our Dautai Voidwalkers. A lot of people are running 3 in these, and I do sideboard one sometimes. And we're going to get into sideboard after this. So, Dautai Voidwalker has Shadow, can only block or be blocked by other creatures with Shadow. I teased a buddy of mine that's kind of new to Magic. When I put this down, he's like, what's Shadow mean? And I said, Shadow means that it can't be blocked and it can't be the target of spells or abilities. He's like, it's a 3/2 for 2 black? I said, yeah, you never heard of the Dautai, huh? And he's like, that should be banned. I said, yeah, it should. But then I explained it to him, and he's like, oh, that's still overpowered. I said, yeah, it is a little bit. So, Shadow, whoa, hey, easy. All right, Shadow, too much coffee, Joe. All right, Shadow, be blocked only by creatures with Shadow. So if they have Dautai Voidwalkers, you guys are going to be bouncing off the walls with each other. Unless, listen to this, you sacrifice Dautai Voidwalker, choose an exiled card an opponent owns with a void counter on it. You may play it this turn without paying its mana cost. So, when you're having these people discard, your opponent's discard, if a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, instead exile it with a void counter. So we got a couple Dautai Voidwalkers out here. We're having people discard these cards. We are creating, let's see here. There's a couple commander decks. I got my modern decks put up. I just have this one here right now. But say we are essentially, I'll just grab some cards just for, we'll say like they're mystery cards. So here's this exile pile being made as they're discarding. So going into that, now let's bring up our Undying effects. So when Rakdos Scam died, in Rakdos Scam, they ran a lot of these, man. I'd see like 6 and 7, sometimes 8 Undying effects because you have Grief and Fury that you're popping out. So basically in these Undying effects, I'm running 5 of these. And because we're not necessarily even trying to scam grief out that much. A couple of griefs scammed out turn one, you got that beater on the board. That's a good thing. But these Dowtai Voidwalkers, I like scamming these back even more. Because this has shadow, okay? Like, say, for some reason, like, my goodness, like, if for some reason in the deck there was a restriction where I had to choose, like, a Dowtai Voidwalker or Grief, I would choose Dowtai Voidwalker. Because this is the workhorse in this deck. And I'm going to get into that. Speaking of workhorses, the one reason this deck became viable, in my opinion, okay, the one reason this deck became viable, and it is just truly, people would say, like a guy I was talking to at the game store, he said, yeah, I know you like playing these weird, like older type decks that really aren't viable anymore. He said, I bet Grief really brought back the 8-rack for you. Because I was talking to him about building one. I said, no, man, Bowmasters. He said, Bowmasters? He said, that's a waste to put that in that deck. I said, I just like the deck because I played the rack when I was like a lad, a little boy. And I was like, man, it was just fun. The stuffy doll on the rack. It's just fun. I was like, I liked it. I played that archetype. Really little butthole decks back in the day. And I still do. The boy and the man are not too far apart. So that being said, I said, hey, the Bowmasters is totally viable in the deck because it punishes card draw. The last thing that we want is our opponent drawing cards. So this punishes that. We're going to have the Orc amassing. We're going to be creating a lumpy Orc army. When Orcish Bowmasters enter the battlefield, whenever an opponent draws a card besides the first one, Orcish Bowmasters deals 1 damage to any target, then amass 1 Orc. So we're going to do damage to them, which the clock is ticking because chances are they're going to have a few cards in hand. And drawing cards with this, they're going to be ticked off that way. And we're going to still, the whole game, it's like a tempo deck in the way where we're saying, hey, clock starts, like I started, discard. We're getting these artifacts out, doing the damage. And then, hey, if you want to be drawing cards, we're going to play a Bowmaster. So they don't like that. Our opponent says, hey, I'm going to lightning bolt that Bowmaster. So we have our Undying Malice. Almost each of these creatures is so good, Undying. Now, see, I was running Augur of Skulls in here. And I have one right here. Just to show you. And I wouldn't be surprised if this may even one day find its way back into the deck. So there's Augur of Skulls. What else we got in here? Let me just... Pardon me. All right. Just a bunch of stuff I opened. A bunch of rando rares in blue. Ew. Yucky. All right. I'm just kidding. I know blue's cool. I think people that use it, I think mono blue burn was awesome. All counter spells blue back in the day. My buddy, I think it's cool. So I just make fun of it, but it's a challenge. It's what the channel's about. A little different because we don't do blue. I gotta always say that because I get a lot of emails sent to me at lizardsofthetoast@yahoo.com. What are you doing there? That's not how you build that. That needs this. And it's like, yeah, but the channel, we don't do blue. It says it. How do you do? I don't do blue. Anyways, Bowmasters. I digress. That's what we say here. The veterans on the channel know. I digress a lot of the time. So, why the big pause? I don't know. Orcish Bowmasters. This card, people say it should be banned and stuff. This is what Black needed. I'm sorry to say, should definitely not be banned. That's what Black needed in Magic. Totally did. I think that card's just wonderful. So, there's our recursion. And, let's see here. Did we go over all those? Yes, grief. Yes, surgical extraction. So, we're not going to be wanting to pay a ton of life. These 2 surgical extractions, that's why I find, where are you? Extirpate to be such a valuable card. So, it's an instant, right? And has that split second thing. So, why I ran 2 Extirpate originally, being able to do this as long as the spell is on the stack, players can't cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. So split second, it can't be countered. That's great. But even better than that, I would use this to disrupt evoke to disrupt scam. So I found this to just be devastating because just like where'd you go? Where are you? These discards, like for instance, Inquisition of Kozilek is a hugely underrated card, I think. So target player reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it with mana value 3 or less. Now, 3 is going to be the top end of mana cost in Modern unless you're cheating something out. You know what I mean? So it's going to be the top end. So look at the things that cost more than 3 and how many of them are in decks. Like really, I mean, I'm not saying like look at them like figured. I mean like literally like Google this and look up all the creatures that cost more than 3 mana that are currently being played at the top end and even like middle of the road and even budget Modern formats. There's not many unless they're cheated in. So the ones that are kind of cheated in or utilized for something different. I mean, this, yeah, that's gonna definitely be so many things. And again, just filling that their graveyard while you have these Dao-Tai Voidwalkers. I do find like I don't like to sideboard the Dao-Tai Voidwalkers. Now, there's one more thing. Ah, there she goes. All right, there they are. There they are. We have some the randos here. Now, I'm just kidding. These are real important parts of the deck. So we have a play set in this deck, okay, in the sideboard. In all 75, we run 4 Fatal Pushes. This is the best removal spell in black. Destroy target creature if it has converted mana cost 2 or less. And it's got Revolt, which destroy that creature if it has converted mana cost 4 or less. Instead, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn. So, say it's like a black sacrifice deck. We're working on one right now that'll be out in the next few months. That's going to be a black sacrifice. It's going to create treasure tokens. Very fun. And we're going to definitely run 4 of these because things will be leaving the battlefield all the time. Our permanents will always be leaving. So this is really good. We have some things that will inevitably leave the battlefield, of course, so we can do that. But again, that in Modern, a mana cost of 2, that's kind of going to be devastating. So if somebody, pops out like a Ragavan, this will take care of that. So without even having something, you don't even have to meet that prerequisite to get good creatures. There's so many good creatures. Again, like look at the great creatures in the Modern metagame that are 2 mana or less. So we have Lily of the Veil here. Love the card. I'm not a fan of this artwork. I like the older artwork better, but just don't have them. I could get them, but I got a really good deal on this playset here. I mean, like a really good deal. You know how it is, like. And this deck is pretty janky, so I do have 2 like decks that, like I say, like Boros Burn does not change. So Lily, each player discards a card. Target player sacrifices a creature. Separate all permanents target player controls into 2 piles. That player sacrifices all permanents in the pile of their choice. Doesn't necessarily happen, but the sack is great because that'll, like I said, that devastated the evoke decks. If you could just get them, they'd have to sacrifice one of their evoked things. It was wonderful. +1, each player discards a card. So run 3 of those in the main deck, and then Turok. Got that kicker, got protection from white. Whenever an opponent discards a card, it gets a counter. And going into, let me make sure I'm not going over. Oh, we're only 20 minutes in. This is no problem, Tony. All right, so we can talk about a lot of things. I think we'll go like 10 more minutes. All right. So we have Knight's Whisper. So as we're evoking, we are going to be discarding, exiling cards. So different things are going to make us discard cards, such as our Planeswalker. Lily, for example, +1, each player discards a card. So we're going to want to keep our hands full. So if we're going in that route, this is a card to put in there. Again, this is one you don't often see in this deck. I like it. It's done a lot of work. So I definitely love it, and it's a good way to spend 2 life. This is one of those cards when this came out, I was like, man, this is what black needed. It really did. Like, black needed this. It's wonderful for black. It's so black, in essence, by the draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. I just love that. So, very black centric. Oh, I better keep those separate, 'cause that's the sideboard, Tony. Hey, Tony, what do you think? I don't know, Vern. All right, what do we got here? Damping Spear. If a land is tapped, let's see here. Oh, I want to stay in there. We go. If a land is tapped for 2 or more mana, it produces Padoodle Doodle instead of any other type and amount. So that, oof. Each spell a player casts costs 1 more to cast for each other spell that player has cast this turn. There's a lot of decks that this will obviously just shut right down. And it kind of shuts us down a little bit too in some ways, because we are wanting to cast multiple spells on our turn. So, let's see here. Pithing Needle. Oh, now this one, a card that, so good in the deck. Now, if I was to run, let's see, where's those Urza's Sagas? All right, so if I was to run 4 Urza's Sagas, I could get away with one of these in my main deck and then not having an extra one on the sideboard. But because we're just running 2 Urza's Sagas, we are running 2 of these. So if they need to go in the deck, Pithing Needle enters the battlefield, name a card. Activated abilities of sources with the chosen name can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. Okay, so these can shut down. Like, think of this for a second. I don't want to make the video that long, but think of the things, okay, with activated abilities that are not mana abilities that we can shut down. I wonder. So you guys think about that. What can we shut down with Pithing Needle? In fact, I like Pithing Needle so much, I think about sometimes adding another one. In any case, Blood Chief's Thirst. This is another card you don't really see in this deck if you look at other similar decks. Sometimes you'll see 1. I run 2 because in the wild, I come up against Wrenn and 6. So, not to mention, there's other planeswalkers that aren't all expensive and big hitters like Wrenn and 6 that cost 2. And you see them once in a while. So, destroy target creature, planeswalker with converted mana cost 2 or less, Wrenn and 6. If this spell was kicked, instead destroy target creature or planeswalker. So, the kicker costs, I don't think I've ever kicked it. I don't like to kick stuff. It's not nice, right? Why would you do that? I don't like to kick things. I don't like to hit things. Wah, wah, wah. See what I did there, Tony? Yeah. All right. Fatal Push. I said I had it in here. So if somebody's running some funky deck with things we don't like and things we don't want, if we feel like we're getting aggroed too hard by creatures, which I come up against mono white humans, this is wonderful. I love, what? This thing pretty much, like, I've killed so many, what is the, I'm having a brain fart. Gosh, it's the Artifact Soldier. This kills me. Oh, I'm getting old. I need a brain supplement. Do I need to eat, is it carrots that help the brain? I don't remember. Uh-oh. Catch 22. In any case, what is that thing? I don't play it. I can't think of it. But it's a common artifact creature that you see. And it's wonderful to get rid of it to stop their card draw. So, it's going to kill me. Somebody's going to put it in the comments. And I should know this one. I've talked about it. Oh, drive me crazy. All right, Fatal Push helps to take care of problematic creatures like Ragavan. And like I said, I've killed so many of this. For some reason, I can't think of it. Who knows? And we have Turok the Dreadcanter. We have another one of him. So he can find his way in there because he can become a beater very quickly. Getting that discard 1/1 counter when somebody's discarding like 2 cards, that's boop, boop, bang. Like you have a 4/3 on the battlefield. So if you play him turn 2, they've already discarded some, boop, boop. And then if you play him late game, like post turn 4, Turok enters the battlefield, kick it, target opponent discards 2 cards. So a nice dual duty beater there. Love the card. Just love it. Another Extirpate. Target card in a graveyard. We know what this does. We talked about it. Just another one to have on board. And you see how I got these things that I pay life to do? I balanced it out. Now, surgical extraction, tempting to take the extra pates out and just have 4 surgical extractions, or even have the extra pate. Maybe remove 1 extra pate, 2 more surgical extractions. No reason not to do that. I can't think of a reason. The other surgical extractions I have are doing work elsewhere. That's the only reason. And we do not proxy on this channel. And I always like to say I have nothing against it. In fact, I love playing people that play proxies. I couldn't have the fun I have. Honestly, Jeffrey, if you didn't play proxies, buddy, we wouldn't have had all that fun that we had with that Rakdos Evoke. And I will say, besides one other person, I couldn't have played Rakdos Evoke as much as I did. I didn't play the deck, but I mean play against it and test things. And Jeffrey, the channel wants you on here, my friend. We want you on the channel. Just saying. He's shy though, and that's okay. I don't blame him. But his hands are prettier than mine, and that's all we show here. Sometimes. All right. Sometimes we show the face too, because we got a beautiful face. All right. Anyways, Feed the Swarm. This one, it's kind of a wild card. Destroy target creature or enchantment an opponent controls. You lose life equal to that permanent's converted mana cost. So I just run one of these in here now to take care of some big problem if it comes up, or some weird enchantment as a wild card, because there is just this one. But when Fury was not banned, I found I'd be running 2 of these, and oftentimes they'd find their way into the deck. Just like another card that got out of here was Go for the Throat. I don't run that in here anymore. So Feed the Swarm. We've got Collective Brutality. A lot of times this deck will run one of these, but because we're not running other cards that are more expensive and would push us up above the budget that we're shooting for with all of these decks in this series, it would push us above the budget. So we're running extras of certain cards, such as this. So we can escalate, discard a card. So escalate doesn't mean you have to choose one and then the next one and the other one. Pay this cost for each mode chosen beyond the first. You can choose this one, that one, and this one. Or this one, that one, and this one. It's not like you have to choose the first. Choose one or more. So discard a couple cards, you can do all of these things. Target creature gets -2 until end of turn. Target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. That extra 2 life has saved us with this. This always goes in the deck when we're going against burn. So 2 of those, and that's the sideboard. And what we pull out, should we just keep going? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and where's 15? Oh, there you are, Turok. Okay. Don't like to get the sideboard mixed in because I've never had it happen, but imagine at a game or playing even for fun with your buddy, you go into your sideboard and you're I only got 14 cards here, and you've already beat him the first game. In any situation, that's bad, and you're oh, I had 61 cards in my deck. It's never happened to me personally, but man, I would feel really bad if it did. So, what are we at here? All right. I guess I think we're pretty wrapped up, but we might revisit this and show how devastating it can be to another player's deck. Just because I like to keep my videos about 30 minutes, and I will say, though, we have a new computer that we're getting acclimated with, and we're going to try to get some new camera equipment rolling and some editing software. So if anybody is interested and wants to see when I did have nice equipment, my fly fishing documentary on here. Great, great thing. So enjoy that. What do we got here? Oh, Augur of Skulls. I forgot to bring that up. So I ran this card in there, and this is a great card if you want to really do this budget, find something to replace Grief with. 4 of these. I'm glad I remembered this, because this is what I really wanted to say. So we can really make this deck budget by taking out the Grief, putting in Augur of Skulls. And Augur of Skulls is 1 and a black. You can regenerate Augur of Skulls for 1 and a black. So sacrifice Augur of Skulls. Target player discards 2 cards. Play this ability only during your upkeep. It just turned out to be too slow for us in the deck. We wanted to try it though because the nostalgia of this weird card that was only printed in this series and only once. They didn't do it again. But it is very odd because it comes into the battlefield, right? Sacrifice Augur of Skulls. Target player discards 2 cards. Play this ability only during your upkeep. So turn 2, play. Turn 3, you can sacrifice it, regenerate it, sacrifice it. Target player discards 4 cards. I just found that we could get them to do that a lot better ways. So by evoking a grief and using more of the discard spells, we push the budget up. However, it was worth it to us. Now, also, like, to make it more budget, you could throw in, something to replace the Bowmasters. But I do love the Bowmasters in here, and they're like the bulk of the cost of the deck. They really are. But man, they're what makes it viable. Woo! Yeah, that's so fun. See that? Oh my goodness. So next time you have one of these slippy dippy, see Ultra Pro? There's your Ultra Pro should thank me because this is so fun. You guys all want Ultra Pro now. Buy Ultra Pro. Buy Ultra Pro. Go to your local Spirit Halloween and buy Ultra Pro.